morning. You're listening to Dr. Heather Williamson, the Leadership Doc, host of Talking Leadership on ESPN 106.1. And it is early, but I am excited because hopefully you're going to be excited as well, because I have an amazing lady who I met, you said 10 years ago.
Over 10 years ago.
Over 10 years ago. Sheryl and I was hired actually to do a strategic plan for your law firm, and that's where we met. And you were the only extrovert in the group. I remember that.
Painfully extroverted.
I know, it was great. But you have since left that law firm and have started your own.
Yep.
So it's Sheryl Herndon Esq, and she is really focusing her practice on estate planning and elder law. And it is Herndon Law Firm, so there you go. Hence the name Sheryl Herndon.
Since May of 2015 now, I think 2017. It's been a while.
Yes. So you left the law firm that you were working with and then started your own, which, oh my gosh, that is exciting.
Exciting is one word.
Mm-hmm. And it is daunting and overwhelming. It can be, because I started my practice 15 years ago almost. Yeah. And first, share a little bit about what your practice really entails and who you help.
Sure. Well, you nailed it. Estate planning, which is wills and trusts and powers of attorney. Long-term care, which is helping folks find and pay for good and appropriate care, whether it's at home or in a nursing home. Guardianships for incapacitated adults, special needs, trust for anybody from minors to adults who have special needs and want to protect benefits, veterans benefits, estate administration, and fiduciary work, which is interesting because I know it's a very, very narrow practice. I mean, I like to think of us as a boutique specialized area field, but we do a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it, very much so. And I know the other firm that you were with also did the elder law too, if I remember correctly.
Elder law and estate planning?
Yes, yeah. So, and they have since merged, and a lot of things have happened in the past over 10 years ago.
Time marches on. Yeah.
It does. So when you run a law practice, you used to be the employee, let's say, you were the partner in the group, one of the partners, to actually being the leader of the organization and running it and having that vision of what kind of practice that you wanted and how to make that a reality. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of those challenges and then how you overcame them.
Right. Right. So, it's kind of like, I guess I could compare it to being an employee and then being a partner was kind of like babysitting.
Yeah.
And being the owner of the law firm is like being a parent.
Being a parent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you knew what you were getting into, you think you know what you're getting into,
right?
Because you've been part of a law firm and you've been a partner, so you've dealt with the numbers, you've dealt with the employees, you've dealt with everything. But when you're a partner, you're only dealing on maybe a much more narrow focus and with lots of support. The buck doesn't as much stop right here in this lap.
Yeah.
It stops across with a lot of people. And the reason I say it's similar to being a parent is if you knew exactly what you were getting into, you'd really think a lot harder before you jumped, right?
Well, yes, I'd agree with that. I mean,
you have a son.
I know, and it's, and I always say, micromanaging is never the way to go. But I will say, obviously, with a teenager, you do have to follow up a little bit more consistently, maybe, than you would with an employee. Not saying that consistency can be defined by how often, like maybe early in the morning and then later in the afternoons.
and so that's interesting because I have 3 kids, and just with my employees, each child has to be parented differently.
Yeah.
And each employee is led differently. Everybody's got their own strengths and weaknesses and their own way of communicating, and so it's rewarding, it's challenging, it's huge, it's immersive, it's time intensive.
Yeah,
you don't step away from that role as attorney and then as owner of the firm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting balancing act with life.
Yeah. And then, the buck stops with you. I mean, you've got people now on your team. You've got other attorneys, I think.
Yeah, I've got one other attorney right now. Kevin's great.
Right. And then paralegals, so you've got staff that you have to make sure that, hey, they still have a job.
Yeah,
I know.
Thanks for reminding me of that.
I know. Sorry. I hate to tell you this, but, the money's still got to come in.
The money still has to come in. Yes. So it's real sobering.
Yeah.
To realize that you're responsible for other people's livelihoods.
Mm-hmm.
And as a business owner that employees get paid first, particularly when you're starting a business. Right?
Yes, they do.
So
I don't think they realize that though.
No, and they shouldn't.
No,
they shouldn't, because you don't
want them to know.
You don't want them to worry.
Yeah.
You don't. I do believe in being very open, and one of the, I know everybody says this, but we feel kind of like a family. We do feel like a family. Not kind of. We feel like a family, and we're very supportive of each other. We're very open. I don't really have a top-down leadership. We all are motivated to achieve what's best for the clients.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been fascinating is just how different everybody is. When we first met and we did the disc, that was a real eye-opener, that it's different people's, obviously people have different strengths, but the way people communicate and the way they like to be rewarded, what feels good, that has been really eye-opening in managing a firm.
Yeah.
Leading, trying to lead people.
Right. Like, for example, the C, the conscientious, the compliant person, they have got to think things through. So, in your staff meetings, not to ask them to give a response right then and there if they haven't had time to think about it.
Right.
I know.
You don't put them on the spot because you're high C.
Oh, no, I do have some C, because you're a mixture of all of the 4 different dimensions, but no, I'm high I.
Okay.
If I was a C, I think I would just be freaking out.
I'm high I too.
I think I would.
Oh, that's right. High I and high S.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense now.
There you go. So when it comes to establishing a business and knowing the no's that you do know are going to be part of that in setting that business structure up, what are some of the things that are just common knowledge that you thought for your business? Because you worked in a law firm, so you kind of saw what you needed.
Yeah. I don't get the high I, right? So jump right in. Worry about
not so much into the details.
Worry about the details later. So I left the former practice, and the next day opened my own practice with a full client load, as just me, without support staff. And of course, clients come first, self comes second.
Right.
So probably I'm better off talking about what I didn't anticipate.
What did you not anticipate?
I always have had a difficulty with balance
Yeah.
and boundaries, and so opening a law practice with a full client load and just me for starters, boundaries were non-existent.
Yeah.
Work was 24/7. I wasn't a numbers person. One of the reasons lots of lawyers go to law school is because we're told there will be no math. True.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, most of us are words people.
Yeah.
We like words and thoughts and not so much numbers and spreadsheets. So that was a big thing, learning spreadsheets, learning QuickBooks, learning, it was a nightmare back to college accounting.
Yeah.
And then really truly managing people was and is, it's one of my favorite parts of the job. It's also one of the most challenging. And not managing, I think leading. Because I didn't realize there was a difference between managing and leading. And the way I see managing is getting people to do predefined tasks.
Right.
Predefined work. Leading people is getting them to maximize what they're capable of, their talents,
Right.
in a common goal.
Right.
And so with your strategic planning, first of all, knowing your
Yeah.
common goal, your vision, why you do what you do, having staff that share that vision,
Mm-hmm.
and then having staff that truly believe in and want success for that vision.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one of the biggest learning curves. It's something that I knew deep down, but had never really had to implement.
Right. Because, you were used to managing your paralegal.
Yes.
Right. And, but yeah, there is a difference between managing and leading. And I'm glad that you recognize that distinction.
Me too. So are the employees.
I know. And we were talking earlier about, when you have a team, it's so important, because we were talking earlier today about, we are not going to be great at everything. You might be great at, doing the detail work within a team, or getting the details on the contracts and making sure that the arguments are made, that everything is brought up. But another person may not be.
Right.
And so having somebody on your team that is really good with the details,
Yes.
especially with what you do.
With the details and the calendar and the clock.
I know.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things I learned when I opened my own practice, well, I actually learned all the way back at law school. You should check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
There is, starting with law school, entry into law school, there are always so many people who appear to have it together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know if they really do, or if it's just the way they're able to present.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look out, there's always somebody who does something
Mm-hmm.
better. It's kind of like what happens on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing people at their best in one particular area.
Right.
So you check your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
You surround yourself with people who are strong with your weaknesses. And if you're really, really lucky, you surround yourself with lots of people who are smarter than you.
I know, and not be intimidated by that. There are, and I've worked with some people that are intimidated because they want to be perceived as the smartest person in the toolbox.
Right.
The sharpest tool. Well, we all have our own experience. We all have our own backgrounds, and we might be smart in one thing, but not in something else.
You can't be.
I know.
And if you try to be, you'll go crazy.
Exactly. And then you're just become inauthentic, and people see through that as well.
Right.
Exactly. So, recognizing that is really important. So why did you decide to go into your area of law?
Wow. Okay. So before I went into private practice, I was a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
And really loved that. I come from a family of law enforcement. A couple things I liked about prosecution was working on a team,
Mm-hmm.
with the law enforcement and sharing the common goal,
Mm-hmm.
doing good for the community, trying to keep the community safer.
Mm-hmm.
And as a prosecutor, when you get to litigate, you're persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to burn out a little bit on prosecution. I was having young children, and I did a couple of infant murders at the same time, and
Not good.
not good.
No.
So, I had another attorney who was a dear friend of mine who said, we're looking for a lawyer in our estate planning firm.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, it's kind of how my life goes. It's lots of serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
Things just happen at
Yeah.
the right time. So I went and worked in this field, and interestingly enough, something I jumped into.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't give it a whole lot of thought. It seemed like a good idea, and the timing was right. But it turns out that there are a lot of similarities. When I was a prosecutor, we were with victims and witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the most traumatic times of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't deal with lawyers, they didn't deal with courtrooms, and so helping them to be comfortable with the process, helping them to understand the legal implications of what was happening, and putting them on a witness stand. They're
Mhm.
scared to death.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so that translates to what we do now, because when I'm working with clients on an estate plan, in order for me to really create a plan that accomplishes their goals,
Mm-hmm.
I have to know some of the dirty secrets.
Mm-hmm.
I have to know that they have a child who has a substance abuse problem,
Mm-hmm.
or I have to know about prior marriage. They have to share with me some of the secrets that they keep from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to do that if they don't feel comfortable.
Right.
Same thing with long-term care planning. When we're helping somebody with the long-term care plan, we may be helping the spouse. Their spouse has been diagnosed with dementia, no
Mhm.
longer recognizes who they are. They're having to admit their loved one to a facility.
Right. Which is very overwhelming and traumatic.
Extremely traumatic, and they also have mixed emotions.
Yeah.
There's some guilt that goes
Yeah.
with that. So a big piece of what we do is education.
Mm-hmm.
A big piece of what we do is counseling. And
Mhm.
we have attorney and counselor at law,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help people become more comfortable in difficult situations, trying to use normal words instead of big legal words so that they
Yeah,
understand
dumb
the
it
process.
down for us lay people.
I'm so good at dumbing it down.
I need it dumbed down.
Well, that comes from me going to law school later in life.
Uh-huh.
You know, the people who went to law school right after college, they learn the big words and they learn the legal terms. They speak in Latin and they're comfortable there.
Yeah.
I already had a life, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I understand why the legal words can be so intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
But making our clients comfortable, and I think just like we did in prosecution, showing people the light at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
that we are going to make it better, and you're going to come out on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. That's why I stayed in the practice. I jumped into it without a lot of knowledge. The reason I stayed
Mm-hmm.
is because I get to use those strengths and those skills to help people in really tough situations.
Mm-hmm. I think it could be very rewarding, especially, we have an older population now. And so I would think there would be a huge need for the services that you offer with your law firm. And then just having that sense of accomplishment that you've actually helped somebody go through a very trying time in their life.
It's tremendous,
Mhm.
tremendous sense of accomplishment and reward. We get more hugs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's really, really cool is when the clients come in, they come in and they're stiff. Because if
Mhm.
they've dealt with an attorney, it's usually been something that wasn't good. It was a divorce, or it was
Right.
a traffic ticket. And so they come in and they're protected.
Mhm.
They sit this way. And what's really cool is to watch them loosen up as they get more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and start to open up and share.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the process, and it's usually at least a couple meetings with the clients, gather information, discuss a plan, review it to make sure they understand.
Mm-hmm.
By the end, they feel so relieved, is the word we hear a lot with estate
Mhm.
planning. They've had it on their mind that I need to. Everybody knows they should have an
Mhm.
estate plan, but it's not the sexiest thing. So
No.
it goes on your calendar and it keeps bumping down on the to-do list.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of relief when it's done. Same with all of the practice areas. There's
Mhm.
just this sense that, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and I feel so much better
Mm-hmm.
now.
I can check that box off, and if something ever happens, we're taken care of. Whether it's my child
That's it.
or significant other, parents, whatever it can
I've
be.
prepared for the unexpected. I've planned
Mhm.
for the inevitable.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to running your own firm, how do you set boundaries so you do
Poorly.
attempt to not work 80 hours a week?
No.
Do we need to talk?
We do. We do need to talk. So, you've heard the expression, the law is a jealous mistress.
Yes.
So it will, for lots of folks, it will suck your time.
Mhm.
There's always more to be done, and it is a practice. So you never get it.
Mm-hmm.
You never can check the box and say, I know law.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Because it's changing all the time.
It's
With
changing.
new legislation. Yes.
And it's all the answer. So if you want to know how to answer questions like
Mhm.
a lawyer, the answer is always it depends,
It depends.
because
Mhm.
it depends. It's every situation is fact specific.
And I use that same answer.
It's kind of a cheap
Because
answer, isn't it?
it is, but like if somebody hires me, for executive coaching, and they say, well, what do we need to focus on? Well, I'm like, it depends. What are your
Depends on you,
goals?
yeah.
What is it that you want to achieve? So yeah, I get that it depends answer.
Well, and you probably also get the boundaries issue, because when you're coaching someone, they could work forever on themselves, and so that's part of the problem with running a practice and being a lawyer. There's always work to be done. There's always clients who need help. There's always staff members who need training and development, and there's always more to learn, whether it's legal education by reading and doing our continuing legal ed, or whether it's business books, leadership books. So no, I stink at boundaries. It's one of my life goals, is to at least define boundaries.
Okay.
So it's out there.
It's
on the to-do list.
It's on the to-do list. But this other stuff keeps going on top. I don't know what it is.
Business and family.
I know.
But I'm working on it.
Well,
I recognize that it's important.
Baby steps, girl. Baby steps.
I live my life.
So when managing your team, you perceive yourself, you said, to have an open style.
Yes.
So what does that mean for you?
Well, it's as opposed to being top down. My team typically knows. Well, here's what it means. Not just knowing what we're working on and what needs to be done, but they know why we're doing.
So important.
Yeah, I did
good. You did good. Because that gives them the motivation that why they're doing what they're doing. It's giving them purpose.
It's giving them purpose. I think, once your basic human needs are met, what people want is to be important. And I don't think you can be important if you're simply doing what you're told. So for all, and the reason, I have phenomenal staff. I've been blessed, and I'm lucky.
Well, Melissa's great.
Melissa's amazing. You can't just name one.
But I know, I've been working with Melissa, so that's the only one I know.
Melissa's my alter ego. She's everything I'm not. So she's the one that's organized and time conscious. She's just hiring people who can pick up where you can fall down. But yeah, so I like the employees to know the why, not just the what we're doing, but the why we're doing it. And what makes things work so well for us is they're all in it for the right reason. And so you mentioned Melissa. And by the way, I have several family members working. I mean, they're not my family, but several. Melissa and her sister.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and their mother. Because we represent their values. Melissa watched her grandparents age and dealt with health issues.
Right.
So all of us everybody in the firm has dealt with adversity in one of our practice areas, and so they're very, very compassionate. You can't teach compassion.
Exactly.
One of the things I've learned is you hire for somebody's personal attributes, and then you teach them the work.
Right. See, you are a whole lot better leader than you think you are.
Excellent.
You are. You're fabulous. And that empathy is really, you either have it or you don't sometimes. I mean,
you can't teach it.
No, it's really hard. I mean, you can kind of point out behavioral cues, on what to read to try and see that you're showing empathy, but some people, it's a challenge.
And I haven't had that challenge.
You're lucky. I know.
I don't want that challenge. I like the folks I have around me.
So, how would people get in touch with you?
Call, email, smoke signals. So I'm not allowed to answer the phone.
That's good.
Is it good?
That is good.
Excellent. That was learned the hard way. That's Melissa's rule. They call the office, 804-935-1500, and one of my very compassionate, competent staff members will help them figure out what it is that we're able to help them with. Sometimes people aren't exactly sure whether they're looking for estate planning or long-term care planning or guardianship or veterans benefits. And so then what we do is we set up a consultation. So the attorney can really help identify what the goals are. We have a really long, invasive questionnaire that people fill out, our clients fill out, because we have to know the details, the devil's in the details in what we do. And that way we get to know the family. We start getting to know the family at the consultation, and then through the documentation. So that's the process.
Mm-hmm. And your website is?
www.herndonlawva.com.
Gotcha. So if you had a piece of advice that maybe you wish that you had known prior to starting your law firm in helping somebody else who's thinking about that, starting their own business, from that leadership perspective, what would that be?
Wow, what a
I
great
know.
question.
That's a tough one.
What would it be for you?
What would it be for me? Because I started my practice in 2008, or actually 2007, December. So really, just 2008. And
You're old.
I know. Thank you very much for pointing that out. See, I've been faking it for years. But for me, it was during the recession, during the Obama period. And I was at the time looking not to start my own practice. I was trying to look into going under that talent management umbrella in HR for, larger companies. And serendipity. And, no one was hiring at the time. Everybody was, larger companies were moving out of the area or downsizing. It was not great for that aspect. But you know what? For me, it was believing in myself, taking the leap, finding out who I needed to hire, who I needed, what resources I need in order for me to be successful. I did that prior to jump starting.
All right. That's exactly
ditto.
I jumped in, kind of out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend that folks
do your
homework, plan a bit. I did that. But have a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Find people who are in similar situations,
mm-hmm.
who you can brainstorm with,
mm-hmm.
and who will be a support network. And when you're at the end of the rope, somebody that you can reach out to who's going to buoy you back up.
There you go. I think that's so important. We all need to have somebody or resource to be able to bounce ideas off or to help in that process, because it can be very lonely, especially as doing this on your own, and there's a lot of unknowns that you need answers to.
And sometimes you just need to check into reality again.
I know. So with that, one last time, how do people get in touch with you?
Phone call's probably the quickest.
Okay.
804-935-1500. You can also visit the website, and there's a contact us on
mm-hmm.
the website.
And if you want to have more information about leadership services that I offer, go to my website at www.transformationgroupllc.com, and you can find out more information there as well. And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you, Sheryl, for being my guest. I so enjoyed our talk.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
I know, it was way too many years in between.
Agreed.
So you're listening to Dr. Heather Williamson, the Leadership Doc, on Talking Leadership on ESPN 106.1. And until next Monday, have a great week. Bye-bye. In this video, these leadership tips and strategies are sponsored by my company, Transformation Group. And in my company, I work with leaders just like you through individual leadership coaching sessions. And in these 1-hour sessions, we talk about strategies to help you develop the skills to overcome performance challenges. Whether that involves learning how to hold your employees accountable, delegating and empowering employees more effectively, spending time on tasks that really matter to your business, or communicating expectations consistently, or even better, lowering your stress. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, then there's an email address below in the description box of this video. So send me an email and we can then discuss if I'm the right fit for you. Until the next video, have a great day.